Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Lane. Let's get stuck into this Champions League game against Bodo Glimt away in Norway. Uh, I don't know what to say about it. If I was a Bodo Glimt fan or the team, I would feel absolutely robbed today. They were dominant right from the start. They muscled us out of every single ball. They closed us down. They did it in numbers. Their free flow and movement and passing off the ball was excellent. Balls getting passed around, they were just so good going forward. Even defensively, they were solid and sound. They give us absolutely no space on the ball, and we were absolutely dreadful tonight. We couldn't string passes together. We would take balls forward. We would hit their box or the outside line, and all of a sudden we would find ourselves with the ball back to Fikario or back into that defence, all the way back into our own half. I said in the preview video that Bodo Glimt were a very good side. They were very strong compared to the way they played against us in the Europa League semi-finals last year to today. They have grown phenomenally in terms of their play. And tonight they just wanted it more. Their fans were great. You could always hear them the whole way through the game. And to be honest, it does look like such a nice wee stadium to play in. And all I can say to the Bodo Glimt fans is, I'm really sorry because we came and we absolutely robbed you. Without a shadow of a doubt, we did not deserve to win it. We did not deserve to take away the point that we did. Bodo Glimt should have had the 3 points, but it does go to show how resilient we are and the fact that we just don't give up and we keep chasing things down. If we start off by having a look at the formation, we went with a 4-3-3, which is kind of what I felt we thought we would probably go with. It does seem to work reasonably well for us against teams that set up like this. However, the players were not at the races. Van de Ven was captain. Romero was left at home as a precautionary measure, I think, because it was going to be on AstroTurf, that there was maybe just a few wee niggles with Romero and it just wasn't worth risking him twisting and getting himself out for a number of weeks. So he was left at home. Kevin Danso, absolutely fine as a deputy, came in, played reasonably well. Really strong at the back, and already, we've already seen that he can play very well alongside Van de Ven. We went with Pedro back in at right back, which I think was the right thing to do. We just didn't seem to have real balance going forward or in the wings, or actually across the defence when we had Odebert and, or not Odebert, sorry, Dougie on the left with Spence on the right. Spence, however, today just had so many wasted balls, and he always tried to do the wee silly like flicks and stuff like that when really all we needed him to do was just take the ball and play it forward, or just make that pass instead of trying to do a fancy wee flick or something like that to move the ball on. And we just kind of lost possession sometimes in areas that we really, really shouldn't have been. In the middle of the park, we just didn't function well at all. And it's not as if we haven't played Bentancur, Sarr, and Bergval as a midfield trio, and we have done on a few occasions so far this season, and it's went reasonably well, but they just were not at the races at all. Bentancur obviously supposed to be, I think, filling in for the Polina role, the more defensive option there, but just didn't seem to do it. And Sarr just seemed to be missing at times. You even forgot he was on the pitch. Bergfall trying to get forward and create some chances, but just not really getting into it. I mean, if you look at the starting 11 to what we went with today, we had Kudus on the bench, Polina on the bench, Simons on the bench, and then Dougie on the bench. Four guys that actually started in the last game against Wolves. And I guess on paper, we did look like the far stronger side, and maybe resting four first 11 players wasn't the right thing to do. Maybe one or two, but four of them, we just really lacked that creativity and shape in the middle of the park with Bentancur and Sarr not really performing that role particularly well. Therefore, we getting overwhelmed in the middle of the park by Bodo Glimt every time they went forward. Odebert and Johnson are fine on the wings when we're winning games and we're going forward, but I tend to find when we're under pressure like we were against Wolves and the way we were pretty much from start to finish in the game tonight, They don't track back. They're not looking to pick up balls into spaces, and it actually just leaves us really vulnerable. We just had no shape because our fullbacks were having to take on more runners going forward. And there were occasions where you seen Pedro Porro trying to mark and keep his man, and next minute Brennan Johnson standing beside him trying to mark the same guy, and Pedro Porro's trying to tell him to go wider and pick up the guy that's coming in that he should be sitting waiting on. Their fullback charging forwards the guy he should have been sitting on, while he was picking up the guy who was actually coming down the left hand side. So all in all, we absolutely robbed Bodo Glimt. There's no two words about it. But let's get into the half and start talking about it. So, where do you start? Bergvall, nice wee through ball into Richie, but I don't think Richie was expecting it to go past the defender, and it's kind of caught in between both legs as he's going forward. I think if it had maybe been played a wee bit harder, then we might have seen a chance opening up for Richie there, but a wasted opportunity for us. 31st minute, Odeberg, nice wee cross in from the right-hand side. Bergvall gets up to try and hit the ball, but the Bodo Glimt goalkeeper comes out and makes a nice wee punch away from that and stopping us from that opportunity. Those were the very rare occasions for us in the first half. Other than that, it was pretty much Bodo Glimt were a steamroller, and all we were with the tarmac in the way getting flattened every single time. 34th minute, though, we seen a penalty being given to Bodo. Bentancur comes charging through into the box, comes flying in on a slide tackle. To me, both feet were up. I actually thought he was getting sent off, and we ended up conceding a penalty. Vicario looked as if he was trying to psych out Hawk. I hope I've said that right. If I haven't, I do apologise. Who ends up hitting the ball up and over the bar and giving us a reprieve there. Genuinely, I thought his movement right up to that point in front of us was really, really good. And I think we were lucky on several occasions that he hadn't actually put the ball in the back of the net up to that point. So, them missing it, you would think sometimes the head goes down, but it didn't have any effect at all. They just kept coming and coming. 37th minute, Haig, by the way, what a player. I really enjoyed watching him tonight, and if it had been a neutral watching the game, I would have really wanted him to score more goals. But as a Spurs fan, every time I seen him coming forward, I just thought to myself, he's going to hit the back of the net. He's going to hit the back of the net. And he, in the 37th minute, he hit a great ball coming through the middle that just whizzed right past the right-hand side post of Vicario. When he hit that, I actually thought he'd hit the inside of the net, and it had just swung round, following the net and round. But thankfully, it had just went wide. But he was a threat all night, and in the first half, he was absolutely rampant. 42nd minute, Ver had a miss from 6 yards out just before the half finished. Ball coming in, he hits it. He's obviously leaning back on the ball and launches it right over from just beyond the 6 yard box. And I thought that was another, they were going to get the ball in the back of the net for that one. And to be fair, I was actually really, really happy and very surprised that he actually missed that ball, because it was a clear cut opportunity. Going into the half, 0-0, I think we were exceptionally lucky. Without a word of a doubt, we weren't in that game at all. We had those two chances kind of intermittent within the first sort of 20 minutes, but other than that, both of those opportunities were against the run of play. Bodo absolutely steamrolled us. I think by half time, Bodo had something probably near on 65-70% possession in the game, and it showed because. And it wasn't that like the way we were recycling the ball around the pitch, where all our balls were going back. Every time they had the ball, they just went forward. There was no looking back. There was very rarely passes going back the way that weren't already in their own half. Everything was, they were looking forward to forward play. Guys, even back in towards our goal, balls coming in, they're always looking to go on the turn with the ball or looking to pass the ball and lay it on to someone to turn and move on to attack. We just didn't do that at all night. Into the second half, though, Bodo started the game exactly the same way they did in the first, and so did we. And within 50, on the 53rd minute, 7 minutes, 8 minutes into the game, Haig, again, brilliant player, leaves Porro wrong-footed, coming in down that left-hand side, just does the wee dummy. Porro steps to the other side, he cuts back, goes the other way, and hits this lovely wee curled ball into the back of the net, past Vicario. It was an absolutely brilliant finish, but absolutely woeful defending by Spurs. We should have had that closed down. And we just didn't. And as indicative of every chance that Bodo had in throughout the whole match and included into the second half, we just stood off and let them come at us, and they punished us every single time. We were just very lucky that they didn't put it in the back of the net more often. 54th minute, we score what looked to be an equaliser. Bentancur, ball comes in, lovely wee cross into the box, hits off the post, comes out. Bentancur hits it, rattles it into the back of the net. We think we've equalised. VAR check goes to show Van de Ven is pulling on the defender's shirt the whole way through the thing, trying to pull him back. And the goal's disallowed because apparently if he hadn't been doing that, then the defender had the opportunity to potentially jump and clear that ball as it's coming in. Therefore, wouldn't strike the post. Bentancur wouldn't have had the shot and it wouldn't have hit the back of the net. So, goal disallowed. Van de Ven extremely angry about it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be so blatant and grabbing hold of and pulling a shirt, you've only got yourself to blame. So, changes should have been made in the second half. We just never seen them, and to be honest, the way it was playing, we really should have made some changes going into that side, and we didn't, and we were punished for it. 59th minute, Kudus and Savi come on with Bergvall and Johnson making way. Bergvall was an interesting one to take off. I might have looked to have put Odebear off and brought him in and played Xavi in on the left because Bergvall just needed a wee bit more push behind him to keep that one going. But Xavi is very effective going through the middles. We've seen when he's came on against Wolves, he really did ignite that spark that really drove us going forward in that, and there were two welcome changes. Could have started being a bit more dominant right down that right hand side and actually trying to drive the ball forward, which actually changed a lot of what we did down that side because we really had no opportunity to create anything going down either wing. Haig, what again? What a player! I just can't. I think I might try and watch more Bodo games throughout this whole competition because I just loved watching him play today. As as a Spurs fan, he was just so bloody good tonight. Again, comes through that middle, just turned us inside out. Lovely shot down through the middle and hit the past Fick into the back of the net for Bodo to go 2-0 up. I can't really say much more. The guy was just so good, and we just couldn't handle him. Our defence didn't know what to do with them. Our midfield lost shape and we couldn't keep up with them. And every time he drove forward with the ball at his feet, he just looked like he would or could score. Going on from that, then goes into the 68th minute. Van de Ven gets the goal that puts us back into contention for the game. Free kick from Porro comes flying in. Van de Ven rises up and bang into the back of the net. Pretty much straightforward, scoops the ball up and takes it back into the centre. And you kind of see there's a wee bit more belief in the side. Heads are starting to come up a weekend, and then we're looking to try and get back into it and at least try and scrape a point. Before the goal, what we didn't get to see was Papa Madassar comes off, Polinia comes on, and all of a sudden we're starting to see a bit more shape in the middle of the park. Polinia starts to stabilise that midfield, and it kind of allows Xavi to do what Xavi does best, which is taking the ball and looking for those opportunities to play others in. Kudus is getting a bit more time on the ball on the right because he's not having to constantly keep coming in and try and show up any attack that's going for it. And we start to look a little bit more dangerous. Not an awful lot because Bodo are still steamrollering us at this point, but we're starting to get a bit of shape in the middle of the park there. 81st minute, Gray and Undoki come back on with Spence and Bentancur coming off. As I said before, Bentancur just didn't really look at it at all today, which is unsurprising because he just didn't do an awful lot. Spence was trying to be too clever in the passes and actually was quite risky in some of his plays, and actually was getting to the point where he just wasn't really coming back enough to track back when he was bursting forward. And Dogi coming on gave us a lot more coming down that left-hand side, and actually him and Odeberg started to link up reasonably well, with Xavi being that kind of pivotal role, playing the ball in between them down that left-hand side. And all of a sudden we're starting to look really dangerous coming down both flanks with that change being made. We had another one in the third minute where Odeberg hits a shot and hits off the crossbar. Second time in the game where we've hit the crossbar, and it looks like we might actually nick something at the end here, and we're driving on and forward into it. Again, 87th minute, Bodo are still driving forward, causing us all sorts of problems. And Helmerson just hits one over the bar. And again, it's squeaky bum time for us because it almost looked as if he had hit that one in under the inside of the bar. So again, we're looking really, really dangerous going forward, but we're still looking really shaky at the back every time they were driving forward. 89th minute, Spurs get the equaliser against the run of play. Lovely wee strike in from Gray. Ball gets played into him, drives it into the box, hits a low shot down. Goalkeeper saves it, comes off the goalkeeper, hits Richie, and it actually looks like it's hit off Gunderson and goes into the back of the net. And it's an OG. Goes to a VAR check, which took probably a good 4 or 5 minutes. To be honest, even just watching it in slow mo on the TV, it looked as if Richie was onside, and it showed that he was probably by a good half a foot, just a shoulder width length off the Bodo defender and at the back of him, and it's a goal. So 2-2, and all of a sudden Spurs are starting to try and get forward a bit more. We're being a bit more creative going forward. But to be honest, at this point, there's 7 minutes extra time added. And by the time the goal's given, it's 93 minutes. So, we're not looking at much more time on the clock for this one. And you'd think with us grabbing that equaliser, Bodo's heads might go, it didn't make a bloody difference. They kept doing what they did right from the first minute when the whistle went. They just kept coming and hammering at us on goal, with Bloomberg on the 93rd minute just putting the ball wide. All in all, whistle gets blown at 99 minutes, and it's 2-2. We've done another snatch and grab in a game where we had no right to take anything from it. Bodo worked exceptionally hard throughout the game. We're a completely different team from the last time we played them. And if I'm being honest, we didn't deserve to take a point home. Yes, we fought back. Yes, we got 2 goals we needed. Yes, we had a goal disallowed, but they had a penalty miss. They had 2 really close range shots that should have went in that they put over the bar. They've had a number of opportunities that went just wide of the post, and they were by far the better team. In terms of being able to pick out a man of the match on our side, I genuinely couldn't pick anyone out. There just wasn't really anybody that did anything. Polinia came on and really strengthened up and made a lot of changes. But again, it'd be a difficult one. It certainly wasn't any of the players that started because we were just woeful across the pitch. So I'd probably say Polinia just. In terms of the overall man of the match, I thought Hake was brilliant for Bodo. I know I've said it several times, but he was by far probably one of their best players. Berg was great going forward and creating opportunities as well, their team captain. But overall, they were just fantastic, where we were really, really poor. But again, as I said at the start, we showed exceptional resilience to come back into this, to get a goal and actually to get another goal. But we can't keep doing this. We need to start driving forward. We need to start being creative, and we need to start putting the ball in the back of the net, because we can't keep going down and fighting back, because there'll just come a point where we're just not able to do it. We managed it tonight. We managed it against Wolves. We managed it against Brighton. These are all too many recent games where we've managed to snatch something from what should have been an absolute pummeling. So, all in all, very lucky for us tonight. Very, very unlucky for Bodo. If we'll have a look at some of the match stats, it doesn't go quite far enough to show how lucky we were, but it kind of shows, how dominant Bodo actually were in the game. They had 18 shots to our 8. They had 4 on target to our 3. So we were a bit more accurate in terms of the shots and opportunities that we had, but they just kept peppering us non-stop throughout the game. Possession was 53% to Bodo, 47% to us. Passes, they had 505 passes in the game, and they passed all day long. We had 460. That is the first game, I think, all season where we have not led on passes in a game. Their pass accuracy was 87% at the final whistle. I think going into the second half, their passing accuracy was something like 92, 93%. So that's actually come down a little. Ours was 82% going into the second half, and we finished on 86. So we kind of pulled it together a little bit more in terms of balls actually being played to players in our own team, because we were still playing balls in that first half where they were going absolutely nowhere. Corners, they had 4, we had 5. So in terms of that, the stats kind of show we got absolutely peppered from start to finish in that game. As I say, we were exceptionally lucky to have come away with a point, because I think if they had just been a wee bit more on the front foot in terms of what their finishing was, we absolutely would have been destroyed. But all in all, a greatly received point, because I think by the end of that first half, I don't think there would have been a Spurs fan anywhere that would have said, I'll take 3 points here. There's no way you'd snap somebody's hand off for a point. And to be honest, we were exceptionally lucky to have gotten that. We took the opportunities that were in front of us. Bodo were a little bit wasteful on some of the chances in front of goal, some very, very clear-cut opportunities, never mind a missed penalty. But, as I say, Champions League, a loss wouldn't have been at the end, the end of it all in terms of being able to get into that top 8, because there are another 6 games to go. But 4 points from 6 out of the first 2, especially in an away game against Bodo. Look at the teams that they put out in the Champions League, the Europa League last season. Napoli, FC 20, Olympiacos, all very, very good European teams. And, they almost put us to the sword tonight. And, by pure luck, we've managed to scrape a point out of that game when really we shouldn't have. So, yes, look, a point all in, I'll take it. I think anybody would be mad to take it. Bodo would be absolutely furious and disappointed because they didn't get all of the points. And to be honest, our goals were definitely against the run of play. Our next game is away to Leeds on Saturday morning, 11 o'clock, I think, is the kickoff. It might be a quarter to 12. So we will get a preview video out for that game. But all in, we were exceptionally lucky today. Again, can't argue with it. We've got something out of nothing. If I say 4 points out of 6 in the Champions League still puts you within reach and distance of having the potential to qualify into the next round after the league stages. And we'll all take that any day of the week. So we will see you in the next video. Come on, you Spurs.